Welcome to Her Career Studio. I'm your host and career coach, Lisa Virtue. Here we live by the mantra, thrive at work so you can thrive in life, because we know you are more than your day job. Each episode includes actionable tips and often mentor stories to not only boost your professional success, but also enhance your personal well-being. Join me as we explore ways to ensure your career uplifts your life. As you strive to achieve work-life harmony, head to hercareerstudio.com for free resources and coaching services to help support you during career transitions and challenges, such as when you are looking to find and land that next ideal job or promotion, or are leading a new team. We're here to support you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And please hit the thumbs up or leave a 5-star review if you are finding the content useful. This helps us keep going in our mission to help women in their careers. Thank you so much for your support. Welcome to the Her Career Studio podcast. This is where we help women navigate the complexities of professional growth and personal fulfillment. So today, in this episode, I had the privilege of interviewing the incredible Rebecca Arnold, who shares her inspiring journey from burnout in her dream job in education policy to becoming a transformative coach. She graces us with her insights from her upcoming book, Rooted Renegade. Rebecca believes unlocking your potential can solve the world's challenges, and her tools for calm, passion, and joy are game changers. Tune in to uncover your it thing, embrace disappointment, and build a legacy that resonates with who you truly are. Because here, we don't just dream about a better work life at Her Career Studio. We create it and take action. So don't miss this episode on ways that you can take action. This is a blueprint for tapping into your fullness in work and life. Please enjoy. Rebecca, welcome. I'm so glad you are able to take the time to talk to me today and the listeners about building legacy.
Yeah, I'm delighted to be here.
What does legacy look like for you? I'm so curious. We're going to dig into your story and what compelled you to, write a book about this topic too. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your career journey up to this point and what led you to this point?
Sure. So I started out in college studying psychology. And I thought I would be a therapist. My mom was a therapist. And from the outset, it looked like a great career and opportunity to help folks. And I recommend this to everyone who's starting out in a career. I did an internship, a very in-depth internship at an adolescent psychiatric hospital. And I decided that I was way too much of an empath to do that level of work with folks. And when I was in college, I was really wrestling with this debate between being a therapist and working in education policy, working on equity. And so when I had that experience at the psychiatric hospital, I decided, well, it looks like education equity should be my focus. So I ended up teaching. I went to law school to work on education policy. I started working at the U.S. Department of Ed doing that and really encountered the realities of bureaucracy and what that looks like at really big system change levels. And I ended up leaving and having my kids and then doing some consulting at different education nonprofits and social justice organizations, which I loved, but I really wanted to sink my teeth into something. So I landed my dream job. I mean, it was the thing that I had been building up to for so long. I was doing education policy work. I was working on social emotional learning. I was in the trenches. I was thrilled. And then I burned myself all the way out. And it was a really terrible experience. I mean, if any of your listeners have experienced burnout, it is a whole mind, body, emotion experience that impacts your entire life in many, many ways. And I really wrestled and grappled with what to do after I had landed my dream job and that was no longer an option. And I had this vacuum of purpose. Mm-hmm. And I really floundered there. And that's where I came to coaching through that experience and navigating that, and also came to this really deep appreciation for what legacy looks like and that it doesn't have to be one thing through our whole lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. We talk about career, and career is usually around the vocation that you have, the jobs that you have, but really it's a portfolio of all of that combined, right? And I love how it can be career legacy even. And then there's legacy beyond our jobs and what we're paid to do. That's why I wrote my book, Career Mama, because it's about, I have two careers. One is my portfolio and what it looks like to be a caregiver and raising children. And the other is the work I do that I get paid for and get fulfilled by. And so I think you're talking about that too, where a job that seems like a dream is still a job.
Yep.
And there's still components that can burn us out, even if we love what we do.
Yeah, what really emerged from that experience, and I talk about this a lot in my book that's coming out, The Rooted Renegade, is how when we haven't done our internal work and haven't really looked at some of the dynamics in our mindset and how we speak to ourselves, in our perspective on things, it shows up in very sneaky ways to kind of cut us off at our knees sometimes, but in these really deep burnout experiences, but even in the softer kind of day-to-day life, it affects the quality of our lives. And I'm really committed to supporting people to look really deeply at what those internal pieces are so that they can feel satisfied in whatever job they do as they go throughout their days.
I love that. And people get burnt out in personal life too.
Absolutely.
We say it a lot where it's like, you are not your job and your identity shouldn't be your job. And that's all well and good, but it's not just about the job, right? It's about how we're approaching those interpersonal relationships. Like you said, what is the mindset going into it? Are we aligned with the right work for our personality type? Like there are a lot of nuance.
Yeah, we can feel it's really challenging when we feel really connected from a values aligned place with our work, but it's still not working for us. That can cause a lot of internal friction. So if it's a toxic work environment, if you're feeling like the actual tasks throughout your day are not things that light you up, even though the bigger picture why of the organization does, or you're feeling like the balance is off with the rest of your life, that can burn us out. So there are so many ways that it can show up really insidiously, and that pressure can build over time.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your dream job. What did that look like and why did you think it was your dream? And then how did you realize quickly that your chapter in that chapter was closing?
Yeah. So this job felt like the culmination of so much work I had done. So I was working there was new legislation in elementary and secondary education. I was traveling around the country, talking with different school districts and going to different conferences. I was looking at ways that social emotional learning programs could be implemented. I am deeply committed. I mean, it's no surprise that I'm a coach, but I'm deeply committed to starting very early with children around how we build emotional regulation skills, self-management, how we know ourselves, so that I saw it as a way to affect the downstream consequences of not doing that work with children. So many of my clients today never learned some of the fundamental skills about how do you recognize your emotions? What do you do with them? How do you know when you've had too much? How do you know when your balance is off? All those things that I really think if we could start with children at the societal level, we would be so much better off. So I was doing that work and it felt awesome. And I had an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. I was running around all over the place, trying to do a full-time job, part-time, traveling. And my youngest was really, I didn't notice this at the time, but I think I noticed it subconsciously, but in retrospect, really fully appreciated it. She was starting to disconnect from me, I think, in order to protect herself from me being away and not present in the way she needed me to be. And it was feeling as time went on, like my needs as a mom were not aligned. The work environment was not aligned with kind of organizational, like the feeling I wanted to have when I walked into work wasn't there. And I was just feeling the pace was not going to work with the rest of my life. And I ended up having a panic attack in the middle of a presentation, and that kickstarted I'd never had a panic attack before. So I didn't even know what was happening. And it kickstarted a whole anxiety spiral that really took me out for a while and took me a long time to build back physically, emotionally. And I really grappled with this question because I had I felt like for a long time to get to this, what felt like a peak for me. And I was like, well, what now? I was late 30s, early 40s. So I was like, what am I going to do now? Because I really wanted to support people and show up for people and make an impact, but I wasn't sure how. I knew the way I had tried didn't work. and didn't allow me to fully express some of the gifts that I hold. Like, I'm a very logical person. I can be very persuasive. All those skills were in play. But my deeper empathy, intuition, some of the softer parts of me were not being accessed in ways that I needed.
Yeah, I find that a lot. Same. So I also relate to you as an empath, and found that the more political, the higher up in like more of a corporate environment I became, the less I was able to tap into that and use it in a way that was productive, which very contrary to my personal fit. Right. And so I can relate for sure, where, especially if you're trying to take on the world, it feels like, and it sounds like that was a lot of the work you did. My daughter's 8 now, and they bring home things about SEL. We talk about it, social emotional learning. It's fantastic. But I keep thinking now, as a coach, of course, I appreciate everything that they're doing. Try to have those conversations with her. But I think about the parents that didn't get that education, or they're not in the space that we're in, and such a disconnect, because the work is also at home, not just at school, right?
Yep.
Exactly what you're talking about. This is why we do what we do, is because we have generations that were not tapped into looking inwards, which I do believe is why we have such a surge in life coaching and services and therapy services, because exactly what you're saying, children didn't get what they needed. So kudos to you, but I could also see where it was such a big lift that if you weren't having that individual impact that empaths typically thrive off of, it could feel a little daunting, right?
I really appreciate what you're pointing to too, about how we feel like we need to be within organizations in order to comply with the culture in the organization, or the expectations of leaders at a particular level, or the social pressures around productivity and all of that. And if any of that is misaligned, we experience, especially for people who identify as women and other marginalized identities, feel like there's this internal friction we can't quite name. And it causes a lot of distress. And there aren't enough conversations about the toll of that over time.
Right. And life's happening, and we're trying to pay our bills, we're just going day to day. And then all of a sudden we're in this job for a few years and we're going, why am I sick? Why am I feeling bad? Why are my kids disconnecting? What is going on? Or why am I disconnecting? Right. We have mothers that are listening. We all have those moments of just, I don't have the emotional energy to give right now. I need to go veg out, or I need to walk away or do something for myself because my bucket's not filled to give back. And that comes with all that shame as a mom. And so all the layers of, we're a caregiver and someone who's trying to do passionate work. If we're not monitoring that, and like you said, the alignment, making sure that alignment fits, it can be really hard. And then it induces things that are have long-term effects. Anxiety attacks. I have other podcast guests. We talk about health because there's such an intersection between that personal life and work that sometimes we try to separate them so much that we don't recognize the symptoms on both sides.
Yes, absolutely. There's a quality of going that prevents us from really appreciating those often they start as small shifts internally, or small points of tension or discomfort that, when we don't attend to them, get louder and louder and then cause all these ripple impacts. And I feel like the well-being conversation, we just need to keep having over and over again within organizations, with our clients as coaches, for leaders with their teams, as a team member with your colleagues. I mean, it goes through the whole system, because if we're not taking care of ourselves, we can't possibly do our good work in the world. And so it has to really start there.
I agree. And then hopefully that will trickle down, and it'll be parents at home understand the importance of that education, and they're able to talk about it, and leaders can show up for their teams and make sure they're reciprocating what they received as well. So important. Well, Rebecca, tell me a little bit more about your book and what it includes and the mission of it, and anything you want to share.
Yeah. So I started writing this book during the very early stages of the pandemic. And when I was at home, like everybody else, or many of us who were privileged to be able to do that, I started recording videos featuring different coaching content that I thought could support people through their day-to-day lives encountering something so novel for most of us. And I realized over time that many of the coaching concepts, ideas, strategies, tools that I was sharing through those videos would be really helpful to put together in a book for people to access. One of my values and tenets as a coach is service. And so I feel like there's a need to democratize some of the concepts within coaching so that other people can access them. The concepts in coaching that are steeped like throughout my book are things that I wish I had learned in school. I wish had been reinforced over time. It's the book I needed in my quarter life crisis, in my 30s crisis, adjusting to children, kind of at every stage. And I feel like we don't have a lot of resources for how to grapple with these bigger questions. Oftentimes we feel like we're the only person experiencing them. We don't have the tools or know where to turn necessarily. So one of my colleagues called this a nightstand Bible. She's like, I'm just going to keep it there because I know if I'm worried about something, I'll turn to it. If I'm not sure what direction to go in, I can look at it. And so I think about this book as a path to holistic success for ambitious professionals, whether you're starting out at a career turning point or on the brink of burnout. And it walks people through how you create the somatic or internal experience of peace and well-being that many of us are craving beyond the quick fixes, that deep sense of contentment, how we create that for ourselves. And then how we look at existential peace. What's our legacy? What's our purpose? Our why? What lights us up? And how do we go about taking action toward that? And then the last piece is around relational peace. So one of the things that causes lots of us tension and stress in our lives is our relationship with ourselves and our relationship with others. And so in that section, I walk people through how to start rewiring your relationship with yourself and how to look at boundaries. What is kind of the constellation of relationships in your life and what's the effect of those on you and what do you want to create? And so it's very tangible. There are 50 plus exercises throughout the book. I really wanted this to be like your coach on a bookshelf that people can turn to again and again. And so it is just packed with client stories, my own stories, exercises, all kinds of things that people can really sink their teeth into. I'm a big believer in practicality. So there are lots of practical things to do.
Right. We can talk theory all day. My husband loves to. There's a point where I'm like, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, you sound like a coach, Lisa.
Right, exactly. Let's take action. Well, this also sounds like a great resource and tool for coaches too. So I can't wait to get my hands on it and find some more resources for my clients as well. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a number of coaching colleagues have said that are like, there are so many tools in here I can use with people. So I feel really fortunate to have been able to put it together and grateful for the impact that I know it's going to have for folks.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time for all of us.
Of course.
Because there's so much, we know it's most of it's out there in some fashion somewhere, but I think people are getting sick and tired of, this is why we have Chat GPT and AI now, right? It's like, just tell me the answer.
Yes.
And even there's still a long way for it to go, but because the answer isn't always for everyone. So that's great. Just having a place where people can go and get all of it at once is fantastic. Love that.
It's also, if I don't say so myself, I've heard from others, it's entertaining too.
That's good. Always
like a friend walking you through these things instead of sometimes I find that books, especially we don't have a long attention span right now, or there are things coming at us all the time. The sections are very short. It's very approachable language. So I really wanted to meet people where they were at.
Yeah, I love that. We are very aligned. Look at us. Very aligned. That's why I have my KISS program for job seekers for the job search. Keep it simple system. Again, all that noise and everything going on, people need it just to be boiled down into like, what do I need to do right now?
Yep.
What can help me quickly? That's fantastic. Okay, let's get into some maybe couple different tips you have that you can pick out of those 50 plus activities or things you have for our listeners so they can try it today or tomorrow.
Yes, happy to. So I was thinking, we had talked initially about getting into the weeds a little bit on legacy, this question of legacy. So I want to offer you 4 steps and then a couple of strategies, if that works.
Great.
The first is getting clear on your legacy, your why, your purpose, your reason for being, your soul's expression. And the examples I'm going to give you for some exercises will help walk you through that. The second is to focus on using your strengths and your unique gift. So some of us think we need a good enough option, and that's totally fine as a stepping stone. Mm-hmm. And when we have a life that's good enough, it doesn't actually feel good enough. Mm-hmm. And so when we start to look at our work and our whole life really oriented toward our strengths and our unique gifts, the quality of it almost becomes in technicolor because we're enjoying so many more hours of our day. The third piece is to live in integrity with our values. So I'd like to say about values, that old Dirty Dancing quote, nobody puts baby in a corner. That's how values are. If we have a value we are not honoring, it will let itself be known. It will keep us up at night. It will create a nagging feeling in our guts. And so it's really when we start to bring all the aspects of our lives into alignment with our values, it starts to feel like we have the energy and motivation to pursue the things that really matter to us. And then the last step, Lisa, you'll appreciate this, is get going. Right. So I like to say no legacy happens from your couch, though it is nice and comfy. Mm-hmm. But having a little bit of a sense of our own mortality in a way that motivates us to take action that might feel a bit uncomfortable allows us to grow that level of comfort over time to take on more and more things that are in alignment for us. So a couple tangible ideas for how to get clear on your legacy, your why, your reason, what you really want to get up to. The first is an art project. So I feel like when we're stuck in our logical brains, it's very helpful to take on a whole different medium. It could be painting, drawing, singing, anything that is outside the realm of logic. So I want to invite you to take out a piece of paper, start with age 4 or whatever your earliest memories are, and just start to chart out the moments where you felt completely alive, fulfilled, in flow, joyful, lit up. And try to aim for 10-ish. If you have more, great. If you have fewer, that's fine. But as you draw those out, you can start to see the patterns over time about what is uniquely you and what lights you all the way up. Mm-hmm. That's the first. The second is a visualization. So oftentimes I find that my clients, and you probably find this too, Lisa, that our clients come to us when they've reached the edge of their logic or the edge of where their own brain can take them. Mm-hmm. And visualizations are a really helpful way for us to access our own intuition. So I'll share my website at the end, but if you go to my website, there's a video visualization you can do and a worksheet that will help walk you through connecting with the more intuitive knowing you have within you that is pretty clear on what you want to do. Usually there's just layers of crud on top of it that we need to clear out of the way. No problem. So that will walk you through visualization. And then the third strategy I will offer is if you go about your week and start to notice when you're doing something satisfying to you, anything, cooking, being with your family, walking in nature, whatever it is, notice the physical sensations of that satisfaction. It might be a settling in your shoulders, an expansion or a rising in your chest, or an anchored feeling in your feet. Whatever it is, just notice what it is as you go throughout your week. That is your signature or your tell that you are on the path of something that lights you up. So if you're looking at job listings, if someone tells you about an opportunity or there's a gig that might be available, it will help you connect with that inner knowing of what is yours to claim. Without those internal sensations, sometimes we just get too in our heads. But when we know, oh, this is the feeling of me being really excited about something and wanting it and it being aligned with my legacy, then we know we're hot on the trail of it. Mm-hmm. So those are just a few, lots more in the book. And it's just my pleasure to share some of these tangible resources with folks.
That's beautiful. Some very similar strategies I use with clients when they're trying to get clear on next direction. And I love, again, that intersection between personal life and career, where you're even that physical, tangible, what does it feel like? So important, especially with women, right? People that are more feminine nature of just that intuition, which is not always just women, by the way. There are some very intuitive men. But being in touch with your intuition, and people question that so often, especially in corporate environments, where I firmly believe corporations would be so much better if we would lean into our intuition more often. So,
Yeah, I sometimes talk to folks about the neuroscience of intuition because we can think it's really fluffy, but actually our intuition is born of our experience, our skills, our strengths, all of those things. It's just a quicker path to it than a spreadsheet or a pros and cons list or any of that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a different part of our brain activating. Yep. And so, and then pulling in, I like to say too, like my intuition leads me, but then I stop and then if I need to analyze it and figure out what the analysis is behind it, you can do that. You can go back and say, okay, I'm feeling this now. Why? And what's the data or the story to back that up? And then you can check it. But a lot of people just say, oh, I'm going to push that to the side instead of lean in, figure out what is going on there. Yeah.
The other thing I find, I don't know, I'm curious if you find this too, that when people are not listening to their intuition, there's often something that is just they're bumping up against. It might be a message they've heard from somebody else or social conditioning or an experience they have had that they haven't processed. So that's what I'm talking about when I say clearing away the crud so we can get at the essence of what we really know internally.
Yeah, absolutely. If that voice keeps popping up. Let's say it out loud. Let's figure out what it is. Yes. Because a lot of times it takes people a couple conversations where it's like, oh, you haven't said that before. That's what actually, well, really, Lisa, if I could do blah, 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 that would be my dream. And I'm like, whoop, there it is. You just let it out, right? You let the cat out of the bag. So it's the quicker we can do that, the quicker we'll get unblocked.
Absolutely.
Just admit it to ourselves and somebody else. Unbiased party is always good to test it out on. We're very fearful when it comes to people in our life that might have a reaction because it might affect them, what our true dreams are, goals.
Yeah, I like to think about that first blush of like recognizing that you're onto something, onto starting to articulate a desire or a dream. It's very tender. So we need to treat it with care initially and not share it with someone who might shut us down and all of that. And just give it a little room to breathe and see what it is and what it's trying to tell us and all of that before we kind of share it with other people who might not be as open to it.
Great way to put it.
Yeah.
Tender. Let's let it live in that tender spot. Excuse me. Oh, that's great. Well, thank you, Rebecca, so much for the tips and joining me today to talk through all of this. Love the work you're doing. I think it's going to help so many people. How can people, first of all, find your book and second, get a hold of you?
So the Rooted Renegade is available on bookshop.org, on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble, all those usual places. My website is root with 2 O's, coachingconsulting.com. And you'll find there, you can get an excerpt for the book. You can get the visualization I mentioned. There's some other resources on there, and would love to connect with you all and see, different ways to support. I think there's so much out there to support us along our way. And so I hope you find exactly what you need. So the book is available for you, as you go throughout your path. And I just so appreciate, Lisa, what you're bringing to folks through these conversations and who you are in the world and just providing such a range of resources to people.
Thank you. Words of affirmation are part of my love language, so I appreciate it.
Of course.
And you had mentioned too a book giveaway.
Yes. So I'm going to we'll have in the show notes a link to a form you can fill out. You just enter your email and we'll enter you into a book giveaway for a signed copy of the book that will be available June 10th and thereafter. So I'm excited to see you there. And do reach out if you have any questions on the website.
Wonderful. I love a good book giveaway, as I was telling you earlier.
Same. I need more bookshelves in my house.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I was talking to someone yesterday about this, how we can't go into bookstores. It's really dangerous.
It is. It's like candy stores.
Yeah. Libraries are such a blessing for people like us. Love it. Okay, Rebecca, thank you so much. And keep doing that wonderful empathic work that you're doing.
Thanks, Lisa. I appreciate it.